everyone, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel. Today I got this video idea from Reagan from Peruse Project, and she did a video on books that she's thankful for in 2017, and hers were all 2017 releases, but my video is just going to be books that I'm thankful for in general throughout the whole course of my life. Any book that I really want to thank for affecting me in such a way, and obviously almost every book I'm thankful for existing because I learn something new from every book no matter how much I hate it, generally speaking, and I'm just really excited to share with you guys. This is basically just a book recommendation video, but for the books that are extra special to me. So let's get on to the video. The first book that I am super thankful for is Gemini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this book and this series in general, and this, I'm not only thankful for Gemini, I'm also super thankful for Illuminae, just this entire book series. I cannot wait for Obsidio to come out. I just cannot wait. The reason that I am so thankful for this series is that I don't think I had ever listened to an audiobook and enjoyed it before these audiobooks, because these audiobooks, if you have not listened to them, are so good. They have an entire cast for each character, and in this book there's they also have sound effects throughout the whole series. In this book there's a song that's constantly played in the loudspeakers like throughout the book, and they like actually recorded the song and like play it during those scenes and stuff. It is so good, so good. And also another reason I'm so thankful for these books is that they're so long, and it just proved to me that I can read long books and thoroughly enjoy myself. I don't think I've ever read a book and had that much fun, or emotion in general, in being terrified throughout the entire thing, and not because it's scary, but just because it's so full of action and I care about the characters so much, and I'm so excited for the next book with these books. I really want to reread this before Obsidio comes out, but I guess we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I'm very thankful for this series. The next book that I am thankful for is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I had not read much fantasy YA besides, you know, the generic stuff like Percy Jackson, that's more middle grade, but you know, that kind of thing, Divergent, if that sort of counts as more dystopian obviously, but that kind of stuff. And I never truly read a fantasy, I don't believe, that I enjoyed anyway. And I remember it was a Saturday earlier this year, and I just read this book, this entire book, consumed it in one day, and man, I was hooked. And it wasn't because this book or the whole series is necessarily that hooking, but for some reason I just fell in love with the world and the characters in general and the powers and magic system and just the whole atmosphere of the book. I just immediately loved it, and I binged this whole series and the Six of Crows duology over spring break, and it was the best thing I've ever done in my life. So over winter break, spring break, just grab this book. If you haven't read it, read the trilogy, then read the Six of Crows duology. You will not regret it. This book impacted me so much because this is kind of what made me fall in love with fantasy. And before, I felt like, because I don't like a lot of epic fantasies when it's too much like kingdom, princess, prince, blah blah blah, but this book opened my eyes to a whole new world of fantasy that is not just a kingdom. And if you haven't read this book, I would definitely recommend it. The next book that I'm thankful for is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. You might be noticing a trend. But this book, let me tell you what went through my head before I read this book. So first of all, everyone loved this book. Everyone who's read it that I ever saw said they loved it. And I finished the Grisha trilogy. I was so sad that it was over because I loved the Grisha trilogy. And I love certain characters in the Grisha trilogy that didn't end up with certain people in the Grisha trilogy. And I was scared to start this book because I obviously love the Grishaverse already, but this book follows a different set of characters than the first books, and that concerned me. But then I read this book and I liked this so much more than the Grisha trilogy. Like, I love the Grisha trilogy, but this book, this series, is just on a whole other level I'm just so thankful for this book because it gave me everything I've wanted and needed in a fantasy book to learn that fantasy can be awesome. This book surrounds a heist, and I didn't realize how much I love heist stories until I read this book, because it all makes sense to me now. Like, I love the Now You See Me movies. I love this book. I love any sort of thing in a book with heists. Like, I love the Vampire Academy. In Vampire Academy series, there's parts with like heists or breaking out of prison. Like, love those kind of stories. It's just so interesting to me. And this book was about a heist, and it was amazing. And another thing that I really have to thank this book for is getting me to really love characters, because before this, I feel like I was more in it for the plot for every book. I really liked the plot of books, and I was fine with characters, but I never actually genuinely cared about a character until I read this book. Because every character in this book is my baby, and if you read this book, they will be your babies too. And in the second book, it gets even more into the background of the characters, and it gets even better. And honestly, there are full chapters in this book about just characters. And if that was in any other book, I would be bored out of my mind, but this just makes it amazing. And everyone needs to read this book and the second book because it's amazing. And you don't have to read the Christian trilogy before this, but I would definitely recommend it because there are like minor spoilers, I'd say, in this that have to do with the Christian trilogy. And also, side note, I'm very excited because my favorite character from the Christian trilogy has a little cameo in the second book in this series, but he's also getting his own series in 2019. I'm just really excited about that, so I guess I'm thankful for that too. The next book that I am thankful for is Here Lies Daniel Tate by Kristen Terrell. And this book I've already talked about on my channel in my favorite thrillers video, but I have a lot to be thankful because of this book. And I would say the main thing that I'm thankful for is that this book is the thriller that I've always wanted. And not only a thriller book that I've always wanted, just a thriller story that I've always wanted. I've always wanted a book with a narrator who sucks, a narrator who doesn't tell the truth, and a narrator who is a horrible person. And that is what this book is about. You literally never get to know the narrator's real name in this entire book. It never gets revealed because the whole book is about him posing to be a missing child. I don't even know how to describe this because I don't even know how it got from where it started to where it ended. And just read the book. You'll know what I'm talking about. Your mind will be blown, and it was amazing. The next book that I'm thankful for is the Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. This series I'm thankful for two reasons. First of all, it is the trash that I need when I'm in a reading slump. And these books are trash, like actual trash, but I'm so trash for them that it cancels each other out. Because it's just pure entertainment. That's all these books are. But they're so entertaining. Let me just put that up, but they are so entertaining. And when I started this series, I think the first book I thought was fine. And then after that, man, it just went uphill real fast. And these books, this is the last one in the series, and I'm reading it right now. And I'm really excited to finish. And I know there's Bloodlines after there's like a companion series, and I'm very excited to read that because the reason that I'm really thankful for these books is that whenever I'm in a reading slump, I can just read the next book in this series because there just seems to be infinite of them, and I'm instantly out of the reading slump. Like, this book is like 600 pages and I'm already on like page 300, and I can just sit and like read this book for like 4 hours and I just don't get bored. Like, sometimes when I read for like an hour and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take a break now. No, like this, just like, you just want to keep reading forever because you want to know what happens and you care about the characters so much that after the first book you just need to know, and so many things happen that are just so unexpected, and you think like, oh, this is gonna be really annoying to like build up and something's big gonna happen at the end of the book, but then it just happens like in the middle of the book and you're like, if this isn't the end, what is the end gonna be? And it's just a wild ride, and I'd recommend it to anyone looking for some easy entertainment. The next book that I'm thankful for is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but this book Most people that are watching this video probably thinking, oh, like, I probably read it when I was younger and it just makes me nostalgic and blah blah. No, that is not why I'm thankful for this book, because I did not read this book when I was younger. I actually read it in 2016 over winter break. And 2016, I did not read. I think I read probably 2 books, well, before winter break. And over winter break, I decided to read this book, because it was mentioned in a different book called When You Reach Me by Rebecca Steed, and I just wanted to read this book because it was mentioned in a different book. So I read it, and it is a middle grade classic, and it's honestly just, there's flaws and plot holes and things like that, but it just has this atmosphere that you want to know what happens to Meg, and it has this whole mystical feeling throughout the whole thing of living in a younger girl's head and learning about time travel, and it's just really heartwarming, and it got me back into reading. And ever since I read this book, that's how I found BookTube and just the whole community of young adult and reading has come right back into my life, and I am so thankful that I read this book and found BookTube. Another book that I'm thankful for is Legend by Marie Lu, and this book I also read on winter break of 2016, which was getting me right back into reading. And man, if I thought Wrinkle in Time was getting me back into reading, this book is so addicting. This whole series is so addicting. I remember I read this book and I needed the next one so badly. I think I like got the sample from iBooks, and I got the audiobook because I had some credits from Audible and I was like listening to it, and I needed to get my hands on this book, but I was on vacation and we couldn't find a bookstore for so long and it was horrible. And just this series got me to fall in love with YA again, because, you know, I've read Divergent, I've read Maze Runner, like those kind of dystopians, and I kind of was having my fair share of them and just thought why it was just dystopian. But then I read this book, and this is obviously also dystopian, but this is probably my favorite dystopian ever. It is so good, like actually so good. And people think, like, I feel like when you see this, you just think, oh, it's another Hunger Games, Divergent, blah blah blah. But this is one where you like the characters. Like, this is one where I genuinely loved the characters. In Divergent, I mean, I read it in middle school, so I wasn't really thinking about that as much, but I didn't care about the characters. Like, I was just there for the story. But this book, it's heartbreaking. The last book is so sad. And then recently I got an excerpt called Life After Legend that I got for pre-ordering her other book, Warcross, and it was like a little bit of like stuff after Champion, which is the last book in this series, and it was, I didn't realize how much I needed that closure, because the ending is so sad. You need to read this series, and I'm so thankful that it got me really back into reading. Another book that I'm super thankful for is The Giver by Lois Lowry, and this book is my favorite book just in general because of the memories that it brings back to me, and it will always be my favorite book forever. And this is just on a whole another level of like my favorite books. Like, this is just, it's just always my favorite book, because I remember in 5th grade finding this book just in like the baskets we had in the back of the room and just reading it and just being overwhelmed with this feeling of just longing to know, because this book is a classic dystopian, and I don't know, it just brings back so many memories and just good feelings of wonder. And I've read this book 3 times and I really want to reread it. I read it in 5th grade, read it in 6th grade because the movie was coming out at the time, and then I had to read it again in 7th grade for school, and I never got tired of it. It's really short and it's just amazing, and I was always just so like mystified with the whole concept, and I learned something new from it every single time I read it, and I really want to read it again. And to go along with that, I'm also thankful for the book Gathering Blue, which is the sequel to The Giver, and there are actually 4 books in this series. They're all companions, I'd say, until the 4th one ties them all together, and the 3rd one kind of ties a couple of them together, but the 4th one brings everything full circle. But this book I'm also especially thankful for because I tried to read it once a while ago and I really got into it, but then I read this again in the 2016 winter break, and I just fell in love with the whole Giver story again, and this one has absolutely nothing to do with the Giver, and then things start to connect in Messenger, the third book, and everything makes sense in Sun, the fourth book, and it's so good, and just the worlds that Lois Lowry creates. I don't know, something about her writing and just this story is wonderful to me, and even the third and fourth book are so good as well. The next book that I'm really thankful for is a series, and I don't have it on me because I got it from the library, but that is the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series by Jenny Han. Especially the last book, but honestly all of them just hold a very, very special place in my heart because I usually don't love contemporaries. It takes a good contemporary for me to love it, and especially contemporary series. That doesn't really usually exist, but man, this series just, it really hit home for me because Laura Jean just reminds me of me, like so hardcore she is me, that the whole series was just great to read, and I feel like I got to grow up with her as I read each book, and I don't know, there was something about it. Usually contemporaries aren't that, like, they don't make me want to just read, like glue my eyes to the page and read for hours on end, but those books I could read just for hours and never get tired of, and especially the last book, Always and Forever, Laura Jean, just broke my heart in the best way. I love all of them, and I would highly recommend them even if you are someone who does not generally like contemporary books. And the last book that I am thankful for is definitely by far the book that I am the most thankful for existing, and that does not mean that it tops The Giver in my favorite books. I'm just the most thankful for the existence of this book, and it is my favorite book besides The Giver, and that is Night of Cake and Puppets by Laini Taylor. And this book I read while I was reading the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, which is what this novella goes with. And I read it on my Kindle because it was only out in ebook, but recently I saw it at Barnes & Noble and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like look at it because I mean I've already read it, but maybe I'd reread it, it's really short. And I was like looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so pretty. And then I was looking inside at everything, and then I was just like, wait, this is illustrated. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool, maybe I should buy it so I can reread it with the pictures, blah blah blah. And then I was like, what is this? Oh, there's like beautiful end pages and like more beautiful end pages, and then I was like, oh well, I mean it's so beautiful, like what does it look like under the dust jacket? And then I discovered that it looks like this with Susanna on the front and Mick on the back, and the spine is beautiful, and I was like, I have to buy this immediately. So of course I immediately bought this book and got home that night, even though I was in the middle of the book, and just read this entire book in one sitting because it's really short. It's like, I think it's under 200 pages, honestly. Something like that. Yeah, it's like 180 something pages, like around 200, a little bit less. And I liked it better than I did the first time. The reason that I'm so thankful for it is because I think I could read this 17 million times and never get tired of it, because it's basically the story of the two side characters from the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy and how they met and fell in love. And if you have no interest in reading Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, just read this book. If you do, I would read the first book first, and then you can read this at like any point in the series. But if you have absolutely no interest in reading the series, or you've tried the first book and didn't like it, just still read this book, please, because it is so amazing. Again, this is kind of like the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series, in the fact that Susanna just reminds me of me so much that it meant so much to me. Thank you guys for watching my video, and I'll see you all next time. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and